Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief Recap. Today is Monday. I had an extra long rant session there. Actually, I went right off the rails today with the community. It's my apologies. I'm sure there's probably a lot of 30-day site trial people that are like, wow, man, this guy sure is opinionated about the world. But unfortunately, as a guy who sort of grew up through the whole sort of baby boomer shadow and just being spoon-fed their message, and it was just, you look back in hindsight after all the dust settles and you go, well, that was a lie. That was a lie. That was a lie, that was a lie, and that was a lie. And it's so cute. One of our site members, while I was going through my rant, goes, oh, silly, naive Canadian. Always so polite and trying to think the best of people, and it turns out the world is what it is. Anyway. Problem here about putting new trades on right now is we got this big tax deadline coming up on Friday in the United States of America. So why would anybody go and take a huge risk ahead of that, knowing that a lot of people have probably got to pay their taxes, and that usually means selling assets to generate cash to pay those tax bills. So the general message, coming out of the weekend show and pretty much through all of the session here today, is not going to be buying a hell of a lot now for probably the next little while. And if anything, we got, ideas, shopping lists in place. Prices are still much, much higher than where I would think about being a buyer. So we just got to sit and hurry up and do nothing and rant about how much we hate these bankers and how the banksters have mortgaged our future. We are living in the future, and as a result, they're making our lives very, very difficult. And it's just such a shame that, at the end of the day, they're just going to turn around and go, well, what did you expect by electing politicians that can't balance the budget, that don't know how to restrain themselves, and they mortgage their future? Well, you're living in the future now, and your future sucks thanks to them. So anyway, Merry Christmas. Shouldn't surprise anybody, I suppose, to see the end game here. I'm not quite sure why people thought that the United States of America would avoid the Zimbabwe, the Venezuela, the Weimar Germany sort of end game of endlessly printing currency. We're probably heading down that exact same road. It's interesting how people like Willy Woo had on-chain metrics that are just really sort of talking about what's happening in the internals of things like Bitcoin. His over-the-top, insane upside objectives and price action for Bitcoin, and the potential for a Weimar Germany endgame here with the United States of America. And because the whole fiat currency system was built off of this con job of the United States of America, which by default I can't fault the Americans. I have to fault my dear leaders for getting sucked into this con job. We might find that all of the fiat currency world goes into free fall here together in unison. So it's going to be funny. They'll post exchange rates. Oh, the Canadian dollar has moved 0.1% against the U.S. dollar. But Bitcoin's $300,000, $400,000 a Bitcoin, and your loaf of bread's $50, $100 for a loaf of bread. So there's your backdrop. Bitter old man yelling at interneting. But if it's one thing, I sure gotta say I'm damn thankful that somehow, some way, I was pointed into this crypto space, and ironically enough, if you can actually look at your crypto account in dollar terms and think of them in dollar terms, we've got assets that are just going crazy here right now. Is it I'm getting more wealthy? Or is it I'm just actually treading water and money itself is just losing value as we speak? I don't know. Not quite sure. But make hay while the sun's shining. It is what it is. I mean, dog money, dog money, dog money. With regard to dog money, I think that story's probably over for now. Probably the market will go through a consolidation cleanup like the rest of the crypto space that I'm seeing. The one area of the crypto space, and I think it's almost immune right now, is this whole DeFi sector, just because, I even heard that you could lock away your Dogecoins themselves and get an annual percentage rate of return on your money even now. So, the whole DeFi movement was, become a market maker, liquidity provider, and get paid ridiculous rates of return. And I think a lot of investors are chasing that right now. There isn't a hell of a lot else out there. And no offense, but and I saw I got quite a few downvotes probably because of it. But, keep in mind, I am a father of a low-functioning autistic child. So if somebody comes out with Asperger's and says, oh, have sympathy, have empathy for me because I'm autistic, I go, whatever. So, yes, Mr. Monks came out and played the autism card, but that doesn't change the fact that I still think he's a very poor spokesperson for things like digital currencies. If anything, he should recuse himself and say, well, because of my Asperger's, I don't think it's actually in your best interest that I be the sort of public face of this. But all that does is it just generates downvotes on YouTube videos. Anyway. I don't have a heck of a lot to get excited about in the market, so as you can tell, it's mostly ranty here. We can go through the rags, but there's just not going to be a lot to be excited about. U.S. dollar index, interestingly enough, this should be a risk-on vote. But we're going through this funny transition window where I don't know if the U.S. dollar even knows itself what it wants to be. I think that the banksters, of course, they're pulling off the reflate the economy, and that way we can get away with all this bad bond issuance from decades ago, and just inflate the problem away. I think that's what they want to do. Whose poop stinks the least right now? I don't know. Ironically enough, on a relative basis, I would say the Americans' poop stinks the least. But I can't understand the logic of what's going on in these currency markets right now. I mean, there's Canadian dollar. I mean, Justin here in Canada, he's just printing money right, left, and center. You can't say there's value to something like the Canadian dollar, especially relative to the U.S. I mean, theoretically, these currencies are supposed to buy them under the understanding that the government will pay you a rate of interest on the holdings. Well, Canadian interest rates are, negligible. So, most of Eastern Canada is under severe lockdown, so you can't say it's economic activity that's driving this. I don't understand. The only thing that makes sense to me, and it's scary, is there is an international player here that is a totalitarian dictatorship, and they have this sort of plan of this, we are going to build an international network and sort of bypass the old sort of post-World War II hegemony world. And I believe that they are trying, and our dear leader here in this country right now is actually he likes the path of the totalitarian dictatorships And I believe that to a certain degree, he's probably encouraging that country to invest more money in our country, and that's one reason why this currency is moving up as strongly as it is. Even though the internals of this country, they just don't justify what I see when I look out my window. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's more of this sort of central planning. Fuck economics. We're in charge. We can do any old damn thing we want. We're going to build 20 buildings and they're going to sit there and they're going to be empty? Okay. Our special interest construction firms are going to get all the contracts and therefore all the profits from central planning, command economy driven fugazi burr printing where the money never came from anywhere to begin with. That's the kind of world that we're in right now, folks. Sucks. But anyway, it is what it is. Half of our job as traders and investors is not really to put yourself into a position where one thing or another thing derails you. You don't go all in on anything. So as a result, I do have a big whack of Canadian dollars. I've got US dollars. I've got crypto, Bitcoin, euros, tons of different stocks and stuff. So it's not really like I'm dying 1,000 deaths by this happening. It's just it doesn't economically make any sense to me whatsoever. But they always say, right, the market can remain illogical far longer than anyone can remain solvent. So go figure. I do think that there is a big push in the U.S. to try and get this added stimulus package passed and going. I've been talking to you guys recently about this gap needing to be filled in on the U.S. dollar index, so that's happening. We are doing some technical damage here, though. The runaway bull has definitely been put back in the closet. And if anything, there's good old 78.6. I've told you this before. What I wouldn't be surprised if this thing still is a bull, and that's obviously questionable now. But I wouldn't be surprised that we actually start carving out some sort of fractal bottom here now. So, I'll keep an eye out for that going forward. Did buy some calls. Got a bunch of calls here. 2022. Said, don't want to touch the damn position. Of course, hindsight's always 20/20. I'm still long the calls. I'm more than happy to stay long. If anything, this actually makes a lot of sense with this sort of buy when it snows, which was, I guess, back here, sell when it goes kind of scenario. In that this should be the absolute best of the risk on scenario. But, in this crazy fugazi world, it's so hard to figure out what's up and down right now with this silly COVID world and runaway government deficits and stuff. It's going to be tough to make head or tail out of this for the next little while. What I would really suggest y'all do is don't chase. Even this, market's moving up, but don't chase. Draw your reload zones, and ironically enough, you could actually make the argument that if you were interested in US dollars, now's the time when you actually really want to pay attention. The image that I like to talk to you guys about, here's another look at that US dollar. Fascinating. Theoretically, according to my sort of cycle analysis, we've already turned the corner on the US dollar. It's just a question of what the hell does this damn bottom look like. Messier than hell, that's for sure. And keep in mind, that's like a 15-20 year cycle. So obviously in short term it's going to look messy. Stocks, like I said, we got tax filing deadline coming up. So I do see some selling pressure, especially in the junior market. Any stocks that they can sell at a nice profit, they are selling. Senior stocks seem to be just kind of going sideways here. Usually they say that the junior market gets sold first, and then the day that the major big indexes start falling, that's actually near the end of the correction. So keep in mind, sell in May and walk away. Usually these markets like to bottom last week of June, first week of July. Obviously no guarantees of any of that shit, but that's what I would be expecting. Crude oil is kind of parked up at the top end of his range. Theoretically, this seasonal trade goes, buy your unleaded the middle of February, you sell it the middle of May, you made money 9 out of the past 10 years. So that's basically what I see going on here. And if this thing did through the end of May and through June clean up a little bit sideways, maybe even come off a good chunk, that would be expected. And actually, it's interesting because we are getting more and more bullish of the gold here. So, if gold really did want to ramp, we need to have weak energy and weak crude oil. So maybe the two of them are working hand in hand together. I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, if we get a move back below this 57 area on the crude, then we can start thinking massive double top failures and seasonal peaks and stuff like that. Nothing really too definitive just yet. Bond market trying to work its way higher, but I've said this repeatedly. I think the interest rate cycle has turned, and actually being a bond bull right now, I think, is a dangerous vocation. If you can buy bonds and then hold on to them to maturity, like buy the physical bond below par, and then hold on to the bond into maturity, and it matures at 100 or what they call par value, then I think there's money to be made. But, like you go in and buy just general bonds at $157 and they mature at $100, well, you can see the capital loss is definitely appreciable. So I'm not excited about bonds at all. And I've told you that repeatedly over the years now. Dangerous, dangerous. I don't know whether gold can really enter in a new bull market or not, or whether this is just more this has been a one-way directional market. We finally do have a double bottom here. So, at the absolute minimum, good old technician-wise, we probably should be thinking things like 50% rules. It's what good technicians do. So we'll go boom. And where's the low? So we're down in here. Boom. And 50% roll. Boom. So, interesting how I had that drawn. Let's put this channel back where it was. Is it off of that high? Maybe. That looks pretty accurate. So, once we get up into this area, this 1885 area, we probably need to start sort of tempering our enthusiasm. Fascinating. I drew this like months ago. So kind of thinking we were looking for a rally into sort of late spring, early summer here. Once we get through here, though, you can see my propensity for the bullish side is going to wane. So can't really be a buyer of that here. What I did notice is we spent a lot of time in the daily brief today talking about it. What I see is sort of like the mid-tier of the gold market is starting to wake up. So the big stocks, they had a bit of a perk up, which is cool. So things like Agnico Eagle, this is a big gold stock I like to follow. Probably the same logic as the gold itself, right? Our ultimate objective is probably, things like 50% retracements. So move up into that area. Not outlandish at all. The only problem is, can you come in and buy there? Not really. I suppose if you want to try and sneak in off of this, we got to be thinking things like reload zones. And actually, I'm a little cross at myself. I actually had a bid working there and I pulled it. Very amateur. But believe it or not, actually, reload zones are still down in this area here. So kind of tough trade. Did notice things like the Pan American Silver did spit up bot fire signals. So that guy's actually saying he wants to go all the way up here. Maybe we have a period of outperformance by the silvers and the sort of industrial metals versus the gold. One thing I did notice this morning, which really caught my attention, was these junior mining stocks are really coming to life again. So a lot of these are sort of that kind of base metal play. Also, too, with regard to gold, what I'm seeing is things called area plays. We haven't seen area plays in quite a while. So there is a larger gold company out of Newfoundland, of all places. I think the stock is NFG. And I was talking to one of my old broker buddies this morning. This stock's all the rage. Pretty good numbers. I mean, we like to see 3 grams per ton. They were coming back with like 20, 30, 40 grams per ton. Had a couple small holes of like 200 grams per ton. So some pretty good numbers. And spent some time trying to explain. I don't think I did it very well, but spent some time on the call today talking a little bit about how people play area plays and just like they'll go and buy up all the stocks that surround a company like that. So, and actually it was interesting. We went to this company's website and we found out that they're in sort of like a consortium. So they don't want to get picked off individually. So it's sort of like there's safety in numbers. So all these little juniors that are all around this guy, perfect VCIM play, absolutely textbooks. Rolled the stock back, shares for dad, options to directors. You tell me, has this thing got any room to run up if they ever get their act together? And maybe it's because we're all going to become gold miners in Newfoundland. Where the fuck is Newfoundland? But classic area play. Whole area is getting bid up. They've got a property there, obviously. And, I mean, you tell me. Does Brian stand to make any money? I'm long from like 12.5 cents. So I'm feeling pretty good. Nice juicy gaps, right? A nice juicy one right up in there. Probably that's where we get filled in. That's $1, right? So it's probably got a good dollar written all over it. In fact, I wanted to buy more. I was a little choked that I don't have enough on the books. I would rather have some more. So if this thing does pull back, I might even buy some more. But that's the kind of market that we're in right now. Is we might find that we're into these area plays and gold miners, not necessarily the majors, but the majors might run out of ore. So they're sort of like, okay, who's out there in the field? Looking for gold. And has anybody found any? Well, it turns out these guys found a big whack of it in Newfoundland. And, of course, all the stocks surrounding this guy, they're all getting bid up too. So that's the kind of fun that I'm having in the market right now. Boring. Probably crypto people are like, oh, Snorves, Vegas. I mean, you can see risk. That looks heavy. The NASDAQ, man, they're just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You know, the problem, of course, with mentioning things like Mr. Wonderful and Tesla is now, you know, he's, I don't know. You know, like I noticed the video yesterday. I made reference to the fact that I didn't think he was a very good spokesman for cryptocurrencies. And all of a sudden the downvotes start coming in, right? And, of course, this is cancel culture. Joshua was sharing a great video on the site about how, you know, like you have peer pressure in high school and stuff like that. Well, this social media and Zucky the Cucky and who's the guy who runs Twitter, you know, all of these people, they're not helping this peer pressure, FOMO, wrecked, kind of idiot human behavior that, if anything, you know, we have to acknowledge the fact that we are a herd species, but just because we are, that doesn't mean you have to act like a herd species. And ironically enough, when it comes to actually making money from trading and making money from investing, you are best served not to follow the herd. To be that, I'm not going to conform to fucking Winnie the Pooh, Heil Hitler kind of society. To Michaels. Every Canadian listening to this, remember, to Michaels. So, it's slightly different. That's more political. But here, what I noticed is now it seems Mr. Wonderful now has said, well, I have special needs. I'm Asperger's. I'm autistic. And everybody's like, oh. I'm probably going to get a whole bunch of downvotes for this. But, hey, I live autism every day for the past 21 years. Actually, 21 as of September. Severe autism, low functioning autism, non-verbal autism. Put your head through a plate glass window autism. Punch holes in walls autism. So, love you dearly, Mr. Musk, but I still do not think you are a good public spokesperson for cryptocurrency. And I appreciate Asperger's. It does make life challenging. But you want a tough story about autism, I'll tell you a tough story about autism. Anyway, like I said, terribly politically incorrect. Dangerous world we're living in. I wouldn't be surprised if I actually end up in a concentration camp at one point here. But what the hell? Free speech is free speech is free speech. And I'll tell you, you go and buy Mr. Musk here, you buy his stock, I think it's got disaster written all over it. You buy into his cryptocurrency up top. And now, for some reason, no offense, but actually I think I'm actually more associated with Doge than you are, Mr. Musk. But you buy into this up here, I think you're asking for trouble. So both those stories look very, very troublesome. What's so sad, right, is that, of course, while these things were running up, free money, fucking government just giving it away, that kind of nonsense, everybody falls in love with this guy. And, I hate to say it, but what I see is that a lot of people, of course, invested in derivatives of this guy. So you get this funny cascade effect, where a lot of people that are involved in that space, they start becoming rock stars, right? The Kathy Woods of the world. And now they're going to get themselves into trouble. That chart looks like a disaster. Interesting thing about these, though, is, of course, if you can plan, I actually really like the idea of maybe, the same thing as crypto, no different. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to try and come in here and be a little cheeky and pick up their stock on the cheap. And, whether you like Brian's rants or not, the point of what I try to do here is I try to show you guys that there's nothing new about any of this. You've probably heard Brian talk about reload zones. You've probably heard Brian talk about things like, and you can't even really see it, but let's make this a little bit thicker. A, B, C, D. Right? Continuation pattern. This is interesting. 1 high, 2 highs, 3 highs. Well, if we get 3 highs, and this is less than 66% of this range, which you can clearly see it is, that must mean maybe this is actually a short setup. Uh-oh. He didn't just say that he wanted to short Kathy Woods, did he? How sacrilegious is that? All right. Interesting. Look at the bot. Just sets up perfectly right off of this M top here. Fascinating. So here's a great example. Don't get sucked into the herd kind of thinking. Try and look at the world from outside the box. Don't be sucked too much inside the box. I mean, don't be insulting to the point of libel or lawsuits. I didn't swear. All I said was I don't think that Mr. Musk is a good spokesperson for crypto, and I'll stick to that. And I'd also say, too, the irony of, something like this image is that, for God's sakes, you have to learn that you cannot be a buyer when assets are looking like this. You have to force yourself just to not buy. I don't know whether you can learn that or not. That's the whole reason why I'm doing this. I'm trying to get this message out to people. Don't chase, don't chase, don't chase. Anyway, so this is like chicken versus the egg. Is this stock price going to come down because people need cash to pay Uncle Sam's tax bill? Or is it coming down because people go, well, fundamental valuations, this thing just got a little ridiculous. And then which feeds which? Is it, you're selling because of tax reasons, or you're selling because of fundamental valuations? And then does it become like a vortex and a spiral that feeds on itself? That's what I think is going to happen here. And ironically enough, I don't mind Kathy. I think she's got a pretty good head on her shoulders. She's got a half-decent research team. But that doesn't mean you just pay willy-nilly any price for the asset. So you want to start, the funny thing is everything that we teach, everything that you hear me talk about. It'd be interesting just the public discourse. What do we call an event where the price comes back into a previous market structure breakout level? Right? Whoops, I don't know what the hell I've done there. What the hell was that? Let's try that again. Down, up, down, breakout. Okay, can't chase. What am I going to do? I'm going to wait for the 2 words. Interesting. Giving you the beginning of the first word with the image that you see there. And ideally, what we'd love to see is give me a nice little W right in here, and away we go. So let's see if you guys even know what I'm referring to there. And then, at least you could say, Kathy, good head on her shoulders, smart lady, probably good investment advisor. I can actually time the purchase of her. Nothing wrong with that at all. I know there was one guy I used to work with in New York who literally used to do that, where he would just line up all the mutual fund managers side by side, and just say, okay, which one of you is bullish, which one of you is bearish? Right now, he would be underweighting Kathy, and he probably would be overweighting things like junior mining stock mutual fund managers. It is crazy capitalism. Look at this little one. Oh my goodness, look at that W. Woohoo! I mean, Kathy doesn't look like that right now. This is what you actually have to learn. If you want to make money from trading, you got to learn this shit. I don't know whether you will or not, but that's what you got to learn. Anyway, so kind of a weird... today's been just weird all around. Very ranty. Hope you got some good value out of that. Probably what we should leave off with here, you can see in the daily brief we were going and looking into what the hell's going on with this little sky. We should probably leave the video here today with just a comment on the fact that the school term is starting up here shortly. It's the enrollment deadline is 11 hours and 40 minutes. So I guess you get basically, till midnight tonight or something like that. So just be aware of that. If you are interested in joining the school, it is there for you. Kevin actually asked me whether the enrollment was still on, and I was like, yep, it looks like it's still going. So if you feel like it, maybe throw that. I think that link is in the page that I put on YouTube. So, what I would simply say is, ironically enough, this is really more about just framing your behavior. How do you go about setting yourself up to participate in the market? Not really going to tell you what to buy or what to sell, but once you go through a program like this, you'll understand what usually makes a good buy. Whether it be fundamental, technical, quantitative. And then, of course, how are you going to participate? How much risk are you going to take? Are you a day trader? Are you a swing trader? Are you a position trader? Are you a Joe Sixpack, guy who's just in there doing his thing? Are you a little old lady off playing canasta? I think I did a fun little audio rant of what a little old lady client was like for me. So check out that funny little bit I think I did about an hour and a half into yesterday's video. Would love to have you on the site. Would love to have you participate in the education program. No hard sell. I mean, it's there. If you want to participate, awesome. And if you want to get to know a little bit about sort of the effect that we have on people who do participate in the education program, I love this testimonials page. It's just so beautiful. So, all right, everybody, rant. Pay your taxes. You Americans got to get that tax bill paid by the end of the week. I'm not really looking for too much bullish in the face of that. You can see things are pretty soft. I wouldn't expect anything otherwise. I think there's some specialty situations. Like I had one of my coins go kind of crazy here this morning, this RLC. And I noticed like Stratus is taken off here. So there are going to be the special situations individually, but the general tide here until we get through the end of this week, I think is, soft. That's probably the best way to put it. So. Okay, everybody, I'll try and shut up now. Have yourselves a great rest of your day. PMA for the win. All the best, and bye for now.